Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Between the Sticks. I'm Sahib. This right here is Nabil. And we're back here getting another episode underway. I think we want to start off this week by giving a shout out and a special thanks to everybody for all the support and all the love that we've received over the last week.
Yeah, it's been very nice. So we really appreciate it. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. Keep tuning in. We're going to do our part, and we appreciate you guys for doing yours.
Absolutely. It's honestly been overwhelming, and I think we were talking off camera about how much support and how kind of like it almost kind of blew up within our friends and family and everybody around us. And we've actually, we're just grateful. Yeah, so
we really appreciate it.
We'll keep doing what we're doing, and we'll keep providing all the content and all the entertainment. And we keep appreciating everybody's support. And with that, we'll get underway with this week.
Yes, yes, we are. Smiling. We are Sunday night at the MCG, 74,000 at the MCG. Carlton, Essendon, two big rivals.
Didn't even give it a chance today. He said Carlton's the first thing on the agenda.
We came away with a good win, so I'm very, very happy.
Absolutely.
So many great performances. I really want to start by giving a special shout out to Jack Silvani. I'm going to start with Jack Silvani. I'll talk about the rest of the performance in a second.
Okay.
I think he is probably second, if not Carlton's third most important player.
Why do you say
in
that?
His current form, behind Wiedering and Cripps.
Why do you say
or
that?
Or maybe even alongside Cripps. His ability to hold it down in defence and in the back line. His offensive kicking is really good. I mean, he shanked one on the Sunday. But overall, his field kicking is good. He makes good decisions. He beats the forward.
Opponents,
he put Nate Caddy in his pocket, and Nate Caddy's a pretty good young defender.
I'm sure
forward,
a lot of the Essendon supporters will have a lot to say about that comment. But
look, over the moon, very happy. It's the first win, hopefully of many in our run to finals.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jesse Motlop. He gets a lot of hate from Carlton fans, so he had a really
You
good
being
game.
one of them.
I'm not his biggest fan, so I'm glad he proved me wrong. And I wasn't a fan of Jack Silvani either, I'll be honest.
Absolutely.
So very, very happy. And look, reality is we belted them by a fair bit at the start of the game, 38 points at one stage.
Them stories that were going that you were putting up.
Yeah, so
had a lot to say for Essendon supporters.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been real bad if we lost.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with the win. Can't complain. You can see I'm over the moon.
Absolutely.
So,
you also mentioned that you wanted to discuss the performance of Walsh and Chera.
Yes, Walsh and Chera. I think Walsh is one of his better games for the season.
Yeah.
Chera as well, one of his better games for the club.
Yeah.
They both stepped up.
Yeah.
Cripps had a quiet game. I think he had 15 touches.
Mr. Brownlow medals.
Yeah,
bring it up.
They can have a couple of quiet games here and there. So Oh man, I'm very happy. Well done, Sam Walsh. 33 disposals, including a big last quarter when he counted. So over the moon, and a very happy Carlton supporter.
I mean, we watched the game together, and we had a couple of Essendon supporters around us that were kind of in two minds. They were kind of, but just believing like, this is Essendon, it is what it is. But they were getting mad at the same time at what their team was doing.
Yeah, look, it's frustrating. And Carlton have been there where Essendon were with the kids and playing a lot of young kids, and young kids make mistakes. So there's two clubs at very different stages. Carlton are in their premiership window. Essendon are rebuilding.
Yeah.
So
did you say Carlton in their premiership
window?
We're
in our premiership window.
Oh my God, we're back to this bullshit again. We're back to this rubbish again.
I stand by that. We're in our premiership window. So yeah,
another episode.
One episode down, one win down, and what?
More delusion on the podcast.
9 wins to go to play, or 8 wins to go, whatever it is.
You did mention last week that this would be the start of your run to September. So
it feels like it.
Listen, that game on the weekend. I'm not saying Carlton had an amazing game, but they did play well enough, and they did actually play 4 quarters, maybe for the very first time this season, and actually didn't disappear off the face of the MCG after halftime like they usually do.
I was very happy. We were challenged, and we were able to find a way through it.
And that's all you can ask for, right?
Now we move on
We move
Monday.
on to the classic King's Birthday Monday clash between Collingwood and Melbourne. I mean, what a game.
It was a great game.
What a game.
It was a great game.
It's like every part of the game was a roller
Oh, it
coaster.
was fantastic.
Yeah, the first quarter dragged out. Sorry, I was about to say dragged out. It felt like it went forever, only because it took us like 20 minutes to kick a goal, and I was just like, maybe Melbourne have shown up today. But then once like that second and third quarter we got going, I feel like Melbourne didn't play badly.
No, Melbourne played really
I feel
well.
like they played very well, and they actually did a great job of shutting our run and carry with the ball early, and it helped them a lot defensively, because once that run and carry starts from us, it's very hard to stop.
Very dangerous, yeah.
Very dangerous and very hard to
I
stop.
think they matched your pressure as well.
That was the two things I realized that they were talking about even at halftime was our pressure and that running game that we have that they stopped. And they also did something that a few teams have been putting time and effort into this year, which was put the clamps on Nick Dacos. Ed Langdon went onto him.
It was a strange decision to take, because Langdon doesn't play as a typically. He's not your typical tagger. He's a wingman.
He isn't, but I also would know, and as everybody else would know, Simon Goodwood would remember the last home and away game of the season last year.
That's where it came from.
Nick Dacos had 40 and had the 3 Brownlow votes along with his brother. So they wouldn't think it'd be a great idea just to leave him alone and just put a normal guy on him, just play your role kind of thing. And I think it was a bit more of the physicality that Ed Langdon was actually putting into him more than just the tagging.
I think Ed Langdon has two traits that a lot of taggers don't have with Nick Dacos.
Yeah.
He can run all day.
That was the one thing I realised, because I'm like, Nick can run and he has speed, but so does Langdon.
Langdon can run
which
all day.
I think was a very good chess move by Goodwin, putting Langdon on Dacos, because it influenced his centre clearance work, it influenced his run and carry, it influenced every aspect, his stoppage work, even though he was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was still the highest clearance getter on the ground at the end of the game. So yeah, even when you put all the time and effort into the world against Nick Dacos, he'll still have 20, kick one, and have one particular stat of
kicked an important goal too.
Which was a 50-meter penalty.
Questionable.
Which the crowd went wild about.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. He did kick a goal, a very important goal. He had another set shot as well that he kind of made a mess of. But even with that, we found a way to win. And it clearly showed our growth as a team and our depth, that even if our best player has been pulled out of the game, we don't solely rely on him alone, or just him or one other person alone. Pendlebury stepped up yesterday.
He was good.
Sidebottom has continued his run of form. Josh Dacos had a best on ground.
Yes.
I mentioned Jeremy Howe last week.
Hey, you called it.
And you
called
had
it.
Absolute
You
belter.
absolutely called it with Jeremy Howe.
I think he should be in all Australian calculations if he already isn't. Honestly, the way he's been playing.
You called it, and he delivered yesterday.
And mind you, Jake Melksham was doing a defensive role on Darcy Moore. So Darcy Moore wasn't his flying around, intercepting best yesterday. And Jeremy Howe said, well, thank you very much for the 3-course meal that I'm about to have on this Melbourne forward line, or this Melbourne attack, because everything that came down that way, he was marking, spoiling. Because Gawn was doing a lot of work around the ground, marking a lot of long balls.
Gawn was arguably best on ground. Melbourne win. He's probably best on ground.
Yeah, I agree. Which we have a topic that we need to touch on a little later on regarding that. But even in those contests where Gawn was at, the moment Howe arrived, if he didn't mark it, he was punching that ball. He was he wasn't allowing Gawn to have the freedom that he had of just marking the ball and dictating the air that he usually does, Gawn. And then it was a close finish.
It was a great finish.
I don't know if they took the piss at the end there, where Will Hoskin-Elliott marked it like 30 meters out, and he decided to kick it backwards out of the forward line again. I genuinely thought they were taking the piss at that point, because I'm just like, you could have just taken a set shot for goal. There was 30 seconds left, but they kicked it further back out and gave it to Bobby Hill on the half forward flank. And more importantly, we go into our bye round, top of the ladder, game and a half clear.
Like I said it last week, and I'll keep preaching it. Premierships aren't won in June. They're won in September.
You and everybody else can keep saying that, brother.
Won in June,
brother. You and everybody else can say that.
Into the bye round, so.
Because without playing a game, we're still not going to lose first position this week. But yeah, it seems like it was a great weekend for both of us.
It was fantastic.
And
But
can't complain about the results.
No, not at all. And I think we play West Coast this week, so look forward to another win on Monday.
Yeah, most definitely.
On Sunday night. We'll move on.
Yes, moving on. We are moving on to our top team of the week and flop team of the week time. So
Yes.
I'll get you to start us off.
Yes,
your top team of the week.
Geelong.
Oh, yes.
Very, very impressed with them.
Yep.
The way they dismantled Gold Coast, and I mean, we'll talk about Gold Coast. I'm going to talk about Gold Coast in my flop week of flop of the team, flop team of the week segment.
Yep.
But I think Geelong were very, very good. The way their
Yep.
runners break, Graham Myers, great
Holmes.
delivery. Holmes, I think he had
40.
he did, didn't
career
he?
high for him,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, and he had a lot of meters gained. So
Yep.
and his disposal is damaging Max Holmes. So
Yeah,
it hurts
very,
you. So
Very.
good win by Geelong.
Yep.
They're cruising along. They played plenty of home games.
Bailey Smith
Cattery.
wasn't playing as well.
I know. It could have been a lot worse. And he's in Brownlow form, Bailey Smith. So
I'm yet to see him
imagine
play
what-
a bad game
yeah,
this year.
he hasn't. I don't think he has. So that's my top team of the week. And yourself.
Unfortunately,
You can't keep doing this.
I didn't. Last week I picked
Oh, you
someone
did it.
else.
You did it.
I don't
You
remember
did.
who it was,
my
but
bad.
a Richmond it was actually. But I'm going to be very biased this week.
Come on.
Only because of the fact that it was a big occasion
Okay.
and we held on to win by 1 point. I think if it was like a 20 or 30 point win, I would have allowed it. But my top team of the week is Collingwood.
Yeah.
Just on the sheer basis of the occasion that we played on, what we did to actually play out that game and win it. I feel like Melbourne did a bit more of what we would have done in the past, which is blaze away and
Yep.
like that Bailey Fritsch miss late in the quarter
So
when he ran into
stupid.
Quainer.
So stupid, bro.
Things like that where we've matured really much from and we're able to, I think we've won the record amount of 1 point wins or like under 1 goal wins or something like that. Yeah. So for that reason solely and the fact that Nick Dacos was dragged out of the game and we still managed to deliver pretty well, especially with our older guys. My top team of the week for this week will be Collingwood for that reason.
That's a fair call. And look, they were good.
Yeah.
And it was in the end, it was you won by a point, and
Yeah.
we'll leave that there.
Classic game. Classic winter game.
It was a good game. On a
Our flop
public-
teams of the week.
Yeah, so I'll kick this one off again. I've got Gold Coast, and
Yep.
I say this for two reasons. One, if you're a serious contender, you're
Yep.
a top 4 team, or you say you're a serious contender.
Yep.
You go down to the category, you go away, and you play, and you show that. I'm not saying they
I
should have
agree.
won, but
No,
you've
I
got
agree.
to turn up.
I agree.
So that's where it's like, are we buying Gold Coast stocks? And a lot of people have, and it's like, yeah, look, I'm sold on them, but top 4 teams show up wherever they go.
Yep.
And that's why the fact that they just didn't show up for 4 quarters.
Yep.
I mean, I was disappointed for them. I was frustrated for them.
Yep.
They didn't even challenge Geelong. So
And they have a horrible record down at GMHBA
Yeah.
Stadium. And yeah, I think that was the biggest problem right there was the fact that they didn't. It felt like Geelong were just running a training drill at some
yeah,
point.
exactly.
It didn't actually feel like a game. So, hey, I can't fight you on that. And my
Your
flop team of the
team.
week is the other expansion team, which was
Ooh.
GWS.
Very nice.
I think Port came to visit them in Canberra. Basically, their home ground, GWS's that is.
They play pretty well at Canberra too.
They do, and that's why I was actually disappointed in the way they played this week because since I'd say maybe the first game of the season when they belted us, since then I haven't really seen them put in a solid performance against a top 8 team, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
A lot of teams
I
they've
don't
beaten-
think their record against top 8 teams are that good either.
They
I don't think
they
you're
haven't
not
beaten
wrong.
Hawthorn.
You're not wrong.
I think they lost to Doggies, if I'm not mistaken.
They
Or
lost.
they might have just beaten Doggies. I don't know if they've played Geelong yet.
They beat Geelong, I think.
Yes, down at GMHBA.
Kick, but
Yeah. But
their
generally
overall
speaking,
record
their record
is not
hasn't been that
Yeah,
great.
I agree with you.
And the last couple of weeks, they haven't been playing that great, regardless.
they haven't.
And that showing on the weekend, in my opinion, was horrible. Like, I expected a lot better from them. I expected them to turn up and actually play well. It just seems like, I don't know what's not clicking for them, or I don't know what's not working for them at the moment. They're just kind of...
They're just missing. I don't know. They're too inconsistent, to say the least.
That's there. I think that's the
so
biggest problem.
inconsistent,
I
yeah.
think, along with
you don't know what you're
Freo...
getting.
Yeah, along with Freo, I think Who else is in the top 8 that's been a bit on and off? Even
You
Gold
can say
Coast.
Gold Coast, even
I
the
think,
Dogs.
even the
Hawthorn.
Dogs, even Hawthorn. I think
Yeah.
that whole group of teams,
So inconsistent.
like, I think they'll finish somewhere in the top 8 or from like 5 to like 9. But they've all been delivering very inconsistent
ordinary.
performances. And GWS was the most disappointing by far for me on the weekend.
Quite ordinary.
Yeah, very ordinary, and hopefully they bounce back this week.
Our next segment.
Moving on, our couple of topics we want to go over this week.
Yes.
And the first one of them is based on the weekend's drama has the game of AFL football become soft?
Yes. Look, it's one that's spoken about as long as time. It's a conversation that is had pretty much with every supporter has at some point, or continues to do.
Yeah.
And I think it has a little bit. I mean, players are getting suspended for tackles nowadays. You can't really bump, and I get it. There's concussion. You don't want to knock someone out, and we can talk about concussion all day. And that's a separate topic. But I mean, there's this fear of no one wants their players to get concussed, but I think it has a little bit.
Do we feel like the bump in particular, let's just speak about that for a second. Do we think the execution of the bump has too much criteria now you need to meet to make it to do? Because I remember 20 years ago, players used to just run into each other and just clean each other out, head knocks or not at the time. And it was just be like, play on, as long as you didn't put an elbow into someone's head, like it didn't turn into prime Barry Hall type of shit. For the most part.
And I think that's one of the best parts about our game, right? When I show people when I'm overseas or whatever it might be, when I show people, the first thing I put on YouTube is AFL big hits,
and they're like, "Oh my god, you guys do this with no pads, no helmets," and they go, "Man, you guys are not real."
It's one of the best parts about our game is the physicality, is the aggression.
I agree.
So if you take out the bump and you're suspending for players for tackling, the game, it's changed. It's gotten soft a little bit.
It's changed and it's becoming. They have this analogy in soccer where, like, for example, the soccer they play in England is very physical, whereas the soccer they play in Spain is very tactical. And I feel like footy is becoming that, even though it's a physical game. Footy, they're turning it into like a tactical thing where it's like, hey, zone off and do this and defensive work here and pressure here. And besides like the legal tackle of being able to tackle someone between the shoulders and knees kind of thing, any other physicality is kind of...
And even that physicality, players are getting suspended for that. Paul Curtis earlier in the season.
A couple of weeks ago,
Yeah, it was a good tackle. And
it just happens to be that. Because I remember after the...
That was a brilliant tackle.
Yeah, after the Braden Maynard bump a couple of years ago, right? And there was a whole commotion about it, and it went to... levels we probably haven't seen anything go to in recent years.
Collingwood. That's why.
That too. But Scott Pendlebury, maybe a week after that, did an interview and he brought it up and he's just like, what's the difference between that or any other football act that you do that ends up concussing someone? And let's say, for example, a player jumps on another player's head to take a mark, but he puts a knee straight into the back of his head.
Very true.
Takes the mark, comes down. We're all thinking he's taken a spectacular mark, but he's also concussed someone on his...
Are they going to ban the specky?
Are you going to ban the player for doing exactly what we've known a football act to be, in the sense of jump up to take a mark?
Look, I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but even the meaning of football act has changed. What was considered a football act 10 years ago is not anymore. Now a bump that 5 years ago, play on, great bump. Now you're getting 4 weeks, so...
Yeah.
It has a little bit,
Yep.
and I get it. And the other thing really is, from the AFL perspective, if you've got parents, they got kids, they look at a game like AFL. Why would I get my kids to play AFL when they can get
hurt
in the head
really bad? I've heard a lot of our parents have said this when
when
we were kids as well.
You're gonna get hit.
They're like, go play soccer or go do this or that instead of
whatever it is.
a very physical game.
That's and the AFL's conscious of that. The AFL's aware of that. So,
do we think it's an educational thing? Is it like, do we need to teach, or as an industry, does the AFL need to teach players how to protect each other but still commit these football acts, bumps, whatever it is?
Well, this is where I think the AFL has got it right, is there is that education. I think there is that some level of education where now players know what they do sometimes. Not all the time, but there's a much greater understanding. Take, for example, on the weekend when Sam Durham knocked out Shearer. Everyone knew Durham was going to get suspended. That was not in dispute. And players, I think, have a better understanding of technique, but it's about that execution. So I do think that education is there. And now it's, I guess, educating the public maybe a little bit. But, I mean, we get it. Fans get it. So
yeah. Because on the weekend,
players need to execute.
In the Geelong Gold Coast game, Tom Stewart laid what I think, or what I've seen in a very long time, what they call a perfect bump on Noah Anderson.
He got concussed too.
Noah Anderson got concussed. But he didn't get concussed off the bump. He got concussed afterwards, which is when his head hit the floor, which Tom Stewart hasn't been sanctioned anything for it, because the act of him bumping him wasn't what caused him the concussion. His head hitting the floor afterwards. And I think those are things, when you're playing a contact sport, those are things, like, I'm not saying it's okay. Yeah, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying, hey, we shouldn't care about a guy getting knocked out or having head knocks or whatever. But I think that perfect example of Tom Stewart executing the bump perfectly, but then the aftermath of the bump actually causing a concussion. I feel like that comes with the game, and there's nothing we can really do about that.
Yeah, look, it is the nature of the sport, and it's a 360 degree game.
Yeah,
you're gonna get concussed. You're gonna get bumped.
Yeah,
I hope we don't lose the bump.
I hope we don't lose the physicality of our game.
Yeah, and more
importantly,
that's why we like the game. So I think, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Then we'll leave it there. Something else interesting happened on the weekend. Stephen May and Max Gawn. So in summary,
might have been our fault.
Yes.
Might have been.
So Stephen May came over to Max Gawn at the end of the game, which is something rare, doesn't happen too often, and said a few words to Max Gawn.
A few words that really wound up Max Gawn as well.
Max Gawn pushed him away. Now, it's been reported in the media, and it's been well spoken about, but it's quite interesting to us, or it's quite interesting anyway, to see it unfold at the end of the game. And I mean, May's got a history of punching on with teammates without saying too much more.
Do we think it's wrong for a player to go up to a leader of their club or the captain, whoever it is, and have a few words with them? Or do we think it's the nature of the words and what's said?
Again, I don't have a problem with what Stephen May did. I think he's a very passionate footballer. He loves his sport. He plays on edge. He's a good player because of that. Sometimes he steps out of line, but sometimes that's just the nature of the player. When they get their best out of themselves, they might say something or be passionate in a way that doesn't come across well, and that patched things up. So I don't necessarily have a problem with what Stephen May did.
Is it, though, maybe a way of which he talks or what he says to people that needs to kind of be... I think the way he comes across, maybe, because, like you said, there's a couple of situations now where he's had punch-ons in the past, or even off-field, he's had issues where physical altercations have taken place. Because Max Gawn, scrunched his face up and just pushed him away. How do you, out of a couple of words, get that reaction out of somebody immediately? Because he had a punch-on with his teammate, Jake Melksham, back in 22.
He did, Jake Melksham, and I think Campbell Brown as well.
Campbell Brown about 10 years ago, which he was a lot younger than, and Campbell Brown laid him out because of it. There's been a couple of times where him and teammates... So is it more of a leadership thing that he probably needs to get trained into? He's 33 or 32 now. So
there's 44 players on a list. They all play with... That's 44 different personalities. 44, 42.
Yeah.
But there's that many different personalities.
Yeah.
And not everyone is friends on and off the field. I'm not saying Gawn and May are friends on and off the field. I don't know that. But they're not going to all get along. And sometimes people rob you off the wrong way. And sometimes in that moment, it just might piss you off.
I mean, after what happened with Gawn kicking the ball straight to a Collingwood play in the dying minutes... He would be pretty annoyed and pretty tough on himself already. So, maybe a teammate coming up to him and saying something that might emotionally kind of feel negative at that moment in time or something, might rub him off. So, yeah, it was just a very interesting and what made headlines after the game.
Make headlines, yeah.
I think more than Melbourne losing the game, Gawn and May going at it, it became a story. And I think they've since come out and said, like, everything's good. We just had two teammates, two passionate guys. Things don't work out the same way. Because there was a footage that I saw, and maybe we can include it later on, where when Jack Crisp missed that Geelong,
of course you want to include Collingwood footage.
I mean, this happened during a Collingwood game, so
absolutely, yeah.
But you know what I'm about to bring up, right?
Yeah.
So Jack Crisp missed that goal or the set shot to win the game for Collingwood.
Yeah.
All his teammates came over and just said, "Hey, like, it's all good, bro. Don't worry about it." Like, at least from the physical body language, what we saw, that's what it looked like. Now, Max Gawn did something similar where he did a bit of a horrible kick, even though it was defense. And when the teammate went over to him to say, "Hey, like, what's up?" had a bit of or maybe a very different reaction, which I feel like, because there was another Melbourne player that was right next to Gawny that was giving him a pat on the back. Kind of seemed like it was just saying, it's calm, it's cool, like, don't stress too much about it. But the moment May came over, it seemed to just infuriate Gawn immediately. So, well, that was very interesting, but we'll keep it pushing.
You don't see that from Max Gawn. He doesn't.
I don't blame him. I genuinely don't blame Max Gawn. He's carried a lot of weight, a lot of...
It was best on ground last year.
Not only that, just generally with everything Melbourne's been going through over the last year or so as well, the Petrarca, the Oliver situation.
He's been CEO, coach,
literally,
captain,
he's been everything.
Spokesperson, you name it.
Yeah, so I don't blame Gawn for how he feels as well or how he reacted, but I think Stephen May has had a couple of these on-field and off-field altercations now, so... But we'll leave it at that and we'll keep it moving, and we'll look forward to round 14.
Yes, we do. Our first game of the round. We've got St Kilda and the Bulldogs. I think that's Friday night, or Thursday night. Thursday night.
Yep.
At Marvel Stadium. These games, St Kilda, the Bulldogs, always turns out to be pretty good. Classic games.
I agree.
Similar clubs, both get a lot of funding from the AFL.
Yes.
Both
smaller Victorian teams, or somewhat seem to be projected as smaller. I'm going to say
both with a bit of an inferiority complex.
Hey, that's what St Kilda and doggy supporters out there.
The Bulldogs did win a flag in 2016. But on that note, I am going to tip the Bulldogs. I think they're a much better team than St Kilda. At Marvel.
Yep.
And I think their best is much better than a lot of other teams. And yourself?
I agree with you on this one. I think St Kilda's showing this year has been rubbish. Has been for a long time. More specifically, this year has been rubbish. I don't think that they've actually delivered upon what everybody thought they were going to preseason and what everybody thought.
To play finals.
Every year at the beginning of the season, I hear, St Kilda, and then same old shit. But yeah, doggies for me too.
We move on to Friday night. Hawthorn Adelaide, 6th and 3rd. We've got that going down to the University of Tasmania, UTAS Stadium in Launceston. Hawthorn play really well there. So
that's the issue I'm having with this game.
Yeah.
Their form is horrible, but the way they play down at Tasmania is very, very well, very put together. It's basically what I called almost their second home ground. So, like... I think based on form, I would say Adelaide would win, but because it's Tasmania, because Hawthorn's record there is great, and the way they play and the way they kind of go about their business there is great, I'd say Hawthorn would get over the line comfortably against Adelaide.
We move on to our next game, which is the Lions and the Giants. This one is up at the Gabba.
Yep.
I like the Lions at the Gabba, even if their form has been inconsistent. And I think the Giants are way too inconsistent. Lions are second for a reason, so the Lions for me.
Do we think the Giants... They haven't had their bye yet, have they?
I don't think so. I think they have it in a couple of weeks.
Do we think the Giants might suffer their third loss in a row?
I think so.
Because I don't think they won the last week as well.
Brisbane at the Gabba.
Yeah, I agree. I think Brisbane will get over the line very easy on this one. And then Essendon versus Geelong at the MCG.
Yes.
Saturday night?
Twilight, I think. Yeah,
Oh, that's a very
4:15 p.m. Twilight. I think Geelong likes these Twilight games because
Really?
it gives their fans an opportunity.
To come
get
down
there,
from,
go home,
especially
so
in Melbourne.
I know they're a fan of
Wow,
playing this
AFL,
Twilight.
great work.
I know Geelong. Even if it's a
Accommodating
Geelong away game,
specifically to the Geelong fans, let
I
alone
know.
the players in the club. That is, wow, amazing.
Good stuff. Look, as good as Essendon are,
Good. Essendon and
Okay,
good do not go in the same sentence, buddy.
as good as they can be,
As good as they dream to be.
I think they've got too many.
Let's be honest
fair,
here.
fair. I'm all for Essendon slander.
But even
I'm trying
Essendon supporters
to
will tell
give
you
him
this
something.
shit.
But yeah, they got too many injuries.
They're shit.
They're out of.
Be honest, they're shit.
You're gonna get a lot of hate for that.
I'm speaking facts.
But I think Geelong at the MCG will be way too dominant. But
If I would be shocked if Geelong don't deliver what the Bulldogs delivered to Essendon a couple of weeks ago.
Essendon supporters are gonna come for you, man.
Brother,
They're gonna
once their
come for
team
you.
sees inside the top 8, come talk to me then, bro. Essendon are shit. Okay?
Yeah, they're coming for you.
Yeah,
And-
Geelong should cruise through that game.
And the final game for Saturday, North, Melbourne and Freo at Optus Stadium. So with this one, North have sold a home games. Or North,
A couple of them to WA, yeah.
they have to a couple of to
Because the one
WA.
they played on the weekend was in WA as well, but it was a home game for them
Yeah, so they've sold
against
that.
West Coast.
I think,
Okay.
I think I have a feeling they
I
might
think
be
this was another sold.
another one.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a Freo home game. Let's be honest.
I mean, you're playing at Optus,
yeah,
bro. Call it whatever you want on paper.
Yeah, Freo for me.
I think Freo should win if they want to keep their credentials of being a top 8 team and a finals team this year.
They'll lose a lot of respect if they lose.
And considering the way North played on the weekend against West Coast, I've heard a fair amount of media personalities say that was a very unwatchable game.
Yeah.
But North managed to get the job done and scrape across the line. So if Freo somehow lose to North this weekend, I think we can... Freo frauds right across...
Gone.
Yeah. Alrighty, moving on.
2 games on Sunday.
Because of the bye rounds.
Bye
I'm like,
rounds,
why is there only
yeah,
2 games on
yeah,
Sundays?
2 games.
Melbourne Port is the first one of them.
Yeah, look, Port Adelaide at home against the D's, as good as the D's are.
Yep.
I think Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval. And they might make a late charge into finals. Port Adelaide.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think Melbourne played very well on Monday. And besides the fact that they lost by a point, I think they kept it up with arguably the best team in the competition at the moment, the benchmark, up there. So I think with Port's form, and I don't know on the weekend, if Port just played extremely well, then GWS played extremely horribly, or Port just played well enough, because that form,
we don't know.
this is that, like, both teams have been that inconsistent. So I think Melbourne might actually get over Port Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval.
That's a good chat.
We'll see how it goes.
It's a good chat.
And the last game.
Game, we've got West Coast and Carlton at Optus Oval. 6:10 on a Sunday.
West
Sunday
Coast
night.
by 120 points. No, I'm joking.
I'm not coming back next week if that happens. You're running the show on your own. If West Coast beat Carlton by 120 points,
hey, listen.
you carry these podcasts on your own.
That
But that's not going to happen. So
Yeah,
I'll be back next week.
I agree with you.
Certain, and I'll be
For the second week in a row, I'm agreeing with you on Carlton's game.
And I'm all for it. I like hearing it that Carlton's going to win. We play well
You should
in
win.
Perth,
Yeah, I know.
and
For your sake, I hope you
we'll beat
win.
West Coast.
Even though I
So-
give you a lot of shit about Carlton.
Yeah, we'll beat West Coast, and our march to the finals continues
Yeah.
to the grand final.
Okay. This is when I start. Anyway, I agree with you on the fact that you guys should win this game and will win this game. Sorry, Optus, wherever it is, they could have played this game in Mars. You guys should win it.
We were sponsored by Mars, though.
And fair enough. And that does it for this week's episode. It's been great. We've had a lot of fun.
Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, the support has been amazing. So we look forward to keeping this going and providing all the content and all the fun and all the entertainment that comes with it. And until next week, take care of yourselves, guys. Ciao.
Ciao.